Next up is Sarah Saxby. She'll be joining us across all 3 days of the summit. It's a sequential series titled When the Nervous System No Longer Needs Managing. And what makes this series so powerful is Sarah's sessions come truly directly from lived experience. Her own journey through nervous system dysregulation and what unfolded when effort, control, and constantly trying to manage it all began to fall away. So I'll let Sarah get started. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. This is Sarah Saxby of the Soul Rehab Project. Very happy to be a part of this summit, a part of speaking on nervous system regulation from a place of experience. I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to speak over the next 3 days and share with you the evolution of my experience with nervous system regulation and how I arrived ultimately at a place where my nervous system is still. Because I arrived at a place of presence, a place I've never been before in my life. And I know that I arrived there because it's all relative. I've never been speaking or living in a state of presence where every moment of my life is inhabited until now. And because of that, because of the work that I've done, I have arrived here and the regulation of my nervous system no longer takes any work. It just is. So over the 3 days, I'm going to evolve my story of how I got here. Today, sharing with you my story of how I was in a consistent state of management, trying to manage my issues, my life, my stress, my anxiety, like most people, right? There were so many things that I was doing, but inevitably, I still felt the same. And I could honestly say that my entire life, maybe adult life, my entire life, I lived in a state of, the way that I can explain it is bracing. I braced myself. I braced myself for the worst in every area of my life. I expected the floor to drop in every area. If I started dating someone, I expected that person to leave me. If I was in a particular friend group, I expected to, I don't know, maybe say something that upset someone and I'd inevitably lose those friends. I expected at a job that something would happen. I don't know if I thought that I would get fired necessarily because, like many of you, I was a really good worker, right? Although I never felt like I belonged in those places, I did the best I could, played by all the rules, did what I needed to do to get a paycheck. But I always felt that there would be something that would go wrong and I would lose money somehow. I wouldn't get paid. I can honestly say that the majority of my life was bracing myself for the worst, expecting the floor to drop, expecting to go without. And that's a very anxious, stressful place to live from. Like most people, there's a multi-billion-dollar industry out there that's going to help you feel better. Feel better in your situation. However my life was structured, there's plenty of things out there to help me feel better in my life. And believe me when I tell you, I did just about everything. I read books. I read books just about everything, becoming more present and becoming more intuitive and you name it, trying to figure out how to structure my day and how to maybe journal about things. And I meditated, I journaled, I created vision boards. I studied astrology. I had a spiritual teacher for many, many, many years. I loved to hike. I started running. I saw an herbalist. I got acupuncture. I was seeing a chiropractor. I saw somebody for energy work. I took the classes, the workshops, the retreats. I did it all. But I was doing all of these things while keeping my life intact. So just a little background of where I was living. Even going back the last 10 years. I was for 5.5 years, I was in an extremely abusive relationship. And when I was in this relationship, it was the first time I could breathe financially, right? Because I could share the burden. If the refrigerator broke, I had somebody to share the burden with, right? If my car broke down, I had somebody else's car that I could, because most of my life I've been by myself. And I traded my truth for a little security. However, that relationship was extremely abusive, not physically, so you could see it, but coercively, every way you could possibly imagine. I was being controlled. I wasn't myself. But when you're always bracing for the floor to drop out, you'll be, I was taught generationally from generations before me, taught me that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are like, security is number one. And so that I carried that with me. And so regardless of how bad the relationship was, regardless of how much I was being controlled and abused and manipulated, it was better than the alternative. At least I was secure. I was sharing life's load with someone, right? Somebody could change a light bulb for me. And not only that, I was working at a job, a company, for many years that was abusive. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this, that you pretend you don't see things. You pretend you don't hear things because you need a paycheck. And a lot of times if you say things anyway, nobody does anything about it. And that's pretty much how this was. I worked in a hierarchy, and the hierarchy protected the hierarchy, for lack of a better way to say it. And so even though there was passive aggressiveness and, threats and things behind the scenes, you just pretended that it wasn't that. I pretended I didn't see things and hear things. One, because I didn't think anybody would do anything about it anyway. And two, I needed a paycheck. I couldn't live without one, right? So here I am. I'm being abused at home. There's an insurmountable amount of pressure because I had to go home every day and know that I was going to be controlled. I wasn't allowed to, I say I wasn't allowed, but that's how it felt anyway. So I just, I stopped going out with friends and I stopped talking to friends because I couldn't do it on my own. He always had to be involved, and I couldn't spend any money. I I just stopped living my life at home, and I had to follow his rules or I wouldn't be able to go to sleep because of the lectures. And so the lesser of two evils was my job at that point. Although the job was abusive, the job was extremely taxing mentally, psychologically, and there was a lot of pressure because you're making rich people richer, right? And if the rich people don't get what they want, they get really pissed and they will speak their mind. And then all of a sudden you look like you're not doing enough. You look like you're incapable. And that's a lot of pressure. So it was, no matter where I was, at home or at work, I was living. It was like I had weights around my ankles, around my wrists, around everything. And it didn't matter. There was no escape from it. And so my nervous system it was just at this all-time high. And there was no way for me to relax. There was no place for me to relax. I could never be by myself because I was either at work or I was at home with a narcissist who God forbid I ever spend 5 minutes by myself because I might remember when times were better. So there was never any pressure release. And I went to school for holistic nutrition. So believe me, I was eating well. I was taking all of the vitamins. I was reading all the books, taking all the classes. I had a spiritual teacher, right? Going to see an acupuncturist, getting chiropractic adjustments, running, walking, hiking, doing everything, breathing, journaling. And yes, maybe it brought a little bit of relaxation. But at the end of the day, I was still living the same life. So if you think about the life I was living as a prison, and I was in a prison cell, I can invite somebody to do acupuncture on me, right? I can invite somebody in. Somebody can hand me a book inside my cell. I could take a workshop from inside my cell. I could talk to my spiritual teacher. I could take vitamins and eat well. I could even walk around the prison. But what's the difference if I'm still inside the prison? How does that make a difference? I haven't changed. I haven't left the prison. I realized that the tools were maybe satisfying something for a little bit. And the tools are great, but they weren't helping me. My life was out of alignment. So those tools weren't helping me get outside of the prison. They weren't helping me align my life. My life was out of alignment, and none of that stuff was going to help me realign. I had to uproot my foundation. I had to get outside of the prison because nothing was helping me. And I realized that. So tomorrow I'm going to talk more about what I actually did to get back into alignment in my life. What I had to face, where I had to face where I was abandoning myself, betraying myself every day. I had to face where I was pretending I didn't hear something, pretending I didn't see something. I had to face all of those places. I had to risk the floor dropping out. And that's what I would like to talk about tomorrow. So we will see you all then. Thank you.